He didn't talk to me once at this event. And I was like, what is this? What is this guy's problem? Like, I was looking forward to seeing him again. Later on, he told me that it was because he kind of had a thing for me, but he had a girlfriend.
I'm Andrea Gunning.
And I'm Ben Fetterman.
And you're listening to Dating Diaries, questions and confessions. Dating Diaries listeners, I am a huge fan of another podcast called Even the Rich. It's hosted by Brooke and Aricia Skidmore-Williams.
Guys, this is not a feed drop. Legitimately, we are fans. They did not pay us to have them on their feed.
No, we stalked them.
Yeah, we legitimately reached out as fans to say, we love you guys because, frankly, one, they're the best. Two, they remind us of us. Mm-hmm. They're two best friends that met at work parking people's cars. I mean, Dre, I know we don't park people's cars, but I could see that. That could be us. But for them, the rest was history. Now they're hosting this podcast that we love.
Even the Rich is a super compelling series. They take deep dives into people's lives, backgrounds, family drama, from the Kardashians to everything behind Princess Diana to the Kennedys.
They tell some pretty crazy stories, but it seems like they have crazy stories themselves. Dating in LA, it's got to be fraught with all the shit we hear on this podcast.
So instead, we wanted to flip the script and do a deep dive into their lives. Okay, let's start with Aricia. She moved from her hometown in Maryland to LA to follow her dreams. Now she's single and living in Los Angeles. And I've always wondered, what is it like dating out there in La La Land?
It's terrible.
But Aricia didn't move out west for love.
I've always wanted to be in the entertainment industry. I wanted to write.
And before the podcast happened, she hustled, working all kinds of gigs.
Walking dogs, parking cars, transcribing, serving, everything.
Aricia, she's self-aware. She knows herself well enough to know that sometimes she dates for different reasons.
I feel like I start relationships in the worst times, almost like they're kind of a way for me to not pay attention to the things that are going on in my life because I'm focused on a relationship, so I don't have to stress about what was going on.
So when she's looking for a distraction, she turns to the dating apps.
Just all the common ones, Hinge, Tinder, Bumble, which I absolutely hate, and Coffee Meets Bagel are the four that I use.
And she has a clever way to keep all the dating apps together that also may work as a secret code.
You can make folders of apps, and I call it Milk Steak, which is a reference to It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Charlie, we're gonna get you back on the dating scene, bro. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's actually why we're here. We want to put your profile on Match.com.
Yeah. Let's talk about your likes and dislikes.
How about your favorite food? What would that be?
Oh, milk steak.
What?
Milk steak.
I'm not putting milk
Just
steak.
put steak. Just
I'm gonna
put
put
regular
steak.
steak, and then that
Don't
way
put
it's a
steak,
good
put
compromise.
milk steak. She'll know what it is.
No, she won't know what it is,
She'll
Charlie.
know
Nobody
what
knows
it
what that
is.
is. No.
Okay, all right.
One day I'll meet somebody who sees that and gets that reference because it's subtle enough that you really need to know that show, at least this hilarious episode.
Who doesn't love literal steak boiled in milk, served with your finest jelly beans? But until her Always Sunny in Philadelphia love appears, her experience has been pretty relatable.
The dating apps are rough. You have love bombing, you have ghosting, all those buzzwords of dating. And it just seems like whether you experience it, you read about it, and then you're okay, well, I think this might be different, and it's not different. It makes you wonder what's going through people's heads.
For example,
this guy messaged me and I messaged him back. And the next thing he said was, do you want to sleep with me? And I was no. And he's oh, so you're racist. And I was just this has nothing to do with your race. I literally don't even know your last name. But it's just things like that where it's why are you coming at me?
Virtual communication can be frustrating for anyone, but it's really tough when you have certain quirks.
I have a sarcastic personality and I get very frustrated very quickly. I think most personalities are hard to understand when you haven't met that person. Through just talking through text messaging or any kind of virtual messaging, it's hard to really understand who that person is. I'm the kind of person who doesn't love when you don't know the difference between your and your. And I was I'm not going to let that stop me. I've dated guys that don't know the difference and it turned out terribly, but I'm not going to let that be my litmus test.
She wants to be more open and communicative, but sometimes it bites her in the ass.
My preference, if I didn't have any kind of moral compass, would be to just ghost everybody, because I don't like to have those conversations. But I don't. Like, you say like, oh, I'm not really feeling this, and then they like turn around and attack you. And it's like, I'm treating you how I would want to be treated, and yet you come at me because I'm not bending over backwards for you. You're not that great in the first place.
And in LA, geographic desirability is a whole other level.
The drive is at most like 20 minutes. Granted, if there's bad traffic, maybe 30. But he was just like, oh, you're too far. This is never going to work. And I was like, okay. But I mean, I know that there are people that are like, I wouldn't never date anybody in Santa Monica. That's insane.
So if Aricia can't find a guy who's close enough on the 405 freeway, what's it going to take to find a love connection?
I'm very progressive, and LA is super progressive. So you're going to get just a lot of people that think similarly. And this is especially a day and age where you want to have like-minded people in your orbit. And I no longer feel like I need to hold back. I used to have like this list of my perfect guy. And I'll say as I get older, it's been whittled down. The biggest thing is just like to have a similar view of the world as me, where it's like, as long as you're not a bigot, as long as everybody gets an equal share, you care about equality, you care about things being fair, then we're on the same page. So at this point, it's like, just don't be an asshole is how I like sum it all up. Let me just remember to stay my authentic self, and the guys can come to me, which, to be fair, they're not knocking down the doors, but I'm just blaming that on COVID.
So am I, because this lady is the package. But she's also speaking from experience. Learning to set boundaries takes time.
I used to be an EMT back in Maryland, and this guy, I met him when we were on the scene of a crash, and he came up to me and he said, let me guess, black dad, white mom. And I mean, this was a while ago. So this was before I really kind of learned like how problematic that, especially coming from a white guy, like to make that kind of assessment of my life. I mean, he was right, but he exclusively dated women who were half black, half white. My dad, he's from Sierra Leone, and my mom is from Florida. And like at the time I was like, oh my God, he likes me. This is so cool. And he's like really into me. But it's also like super problematic to like talk to somebody about that, especially when you don't know them. Like that's the first thing you say to me.
Seems like a red flag, right? He only dates mixed race women and he checks their credentials right up front. But Aricia gave him a shot.
We had gone on a date and I had ordered chicken wings, which I love chicken wings. And he was like, I love seeing you get in touch with your black side. And it was one of those things where like, I didn't realize how racist saying things like that was. My response was like, I like chicken wings. Like, I don't know what side it comes from. I just like chicken wings. Still do. That was one of those things that you kind of have to unpack in therapy about, like, why is that a problematic thing to say? Why did I feel good hearing that? And why don't I feel good hearing that now? Your own, like, who you are is being like chipped away just because this guy that you think is cute says something to you.
And now a completely different tale about dating in LA. Aricia's co-host and best friend, Brooke Sifrin, also came to LA with stars in her eyes. She had dreams to pursue, but bills to pay too.
I moved to LA like many do, to be an actress, a host, whatever. And I knew that I didn't want to work like a regular 9-to-5 job. And so I was just looking for jobs that I could work part-time while I was trying to go to auditions and things like that. Ironically enough, I met Aricia parking cars for rich people.
They worked for a valet service that was staffed by mostly women, with just a few men. And a guy named Ross, he was one of them.
I really liked him right off the bat. And I was like, okay, this guy's fun. But I didn't think anything of it really because, you know, I was dating someone and I knew he was too. And we were working at this huge mansion as per usual with that job. And we had to take this golf cart up a driveway to use the bathroom. And he was going, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna come up with you. And so I was walking back to the golf cart after I went to the bathroom and I tripped. And I was like, oh my God. Like, usually I don't care if people see me looking like an idiot, but I was like, oh my God, did he see that? And he was like, I saw that. And I was like, okay, this guy gets me. He's cool.
So Brooke had a new work buddy.
I sent him a friend request and we became friends, and we didn't work together again for a couple months. And I saw his name on the email list for the job and I was like, oh, Ross is gonna be there. Like, that's cool. I haven't seen him in a while. He didn't talk to me once at this event. And I was like, what is this? What is this guy's problem? Like, why isn't he talking to me? I was looking forward to seeing him again. Later on, he told me that it was because he like kind of had a thing for me, but he had a girlfriend, so he didn't want to like cross that line or any boundaries.
He sounds like a stand-up guy, actually.
I was like, okay, that's sweet. Maybe I can actually trust this guy in the future. So he ended up becoming single, and I was actually dating someone else because in the past I would go relationship to relationship to relationship. I was like a mini Jennifer Lopez. And I would do these like 3-month relationships and then get sick of them.
Ross and Brooke continued to have the occasional run-in at the valet company job. But eventually, the stars aligned and they were both single at the same time.
We were working together more regularly, and you know, our first kiss happened at work. It was the 4th of July, and we had ridden to this event together. It was in Malibu. After the event, we were like loading up the car and putting all this stuff away, and then we kissed. And I think in Ross's eyes, he was like, okay, this is finally happening. For me, I was like, I'm gonna wait and make this guy wait 2 more years. He chased me for a long time. And after our kiss, I don't think we hung out again for like 6 months or something like that.
I'm all for playing hard to get, but wow, Brooke.
I liked him. I did like him, but I was like, I'm not gonna jump into another relationship and just have this be another 3-month thing.
Even J-Lo would be impressed. And speaking of celebrities, another star's passing led to their first real date.
Robin Williams died, which is the weirdest. The death of Robin Williams brought us together. I was like, man, I'm so sad about Robin Williams. Like, we should get together and just like watch old Robin Williams movies. I think we watched Hook and Patch Adams or something.
But a relationship still didn't happen. Brooke just wasn't ready or didn't view him with that lens until someone else saw the situation with perfect clarity.
My best friend from home was in town, and she was working some valet events with me, and she met Ross. And after the event, she was like, he's in love with you. And I was like, no, he's not. And she's like, no, he's in love with you. And for some reason, her telling me that completely changed my outlook on him. And I don't know what that was. Like, I still liked him. I'd always liked him. And I was like, maybe he really does.
Somehow it clicked. The guy had been right there, waiting.
This was right before New Year's Eve. This was around Christmas. And we were going to be going to Vegas, where my parents live, to spend Christmas. And my best friend and her husband were going to be there. And we were sitting in my car at an event. She said, you should invite Ross. And I was like, okay, I'll invite him. So I was like, hey, do you have plans for New Year's? And he was like, no, I don't. And you could like see him perk up like, okay, no, I don't have plans. And I was like, well, we're all going to be hanging out at my parents' house in Vegas. If you want to come, it's just going to be us. And he was like, yeah, I can do that. So he drove from LA to Vegas, like 4.5 hours in the snow. There was like snow on the way, to hang out with me on New Year's Eve.
That's a drive you do for 2 reasons: gambling or love. And he wasn't gambling. Then Brooke got the most important endorsement.
My dog instantly liked him, which is crazy because my dog does not like men. And I was like, okay.
And finally, after all that time of Ross hanging in there,
he met my parents the first time he came to visit, which is crazy. They loved him. He fit in so well. And from that moment on, we were together. And I just like knew, I was like, okay, this guy's good. And we started dating like officially, maybe like 2 weeks later. We were together, actually I think we were only together about a year before we got engaged. And then we got married about a year later after. We knew we didn't want to have this like long drawn out engagement.
The glam team remarked that Brooke was the calmest bride they had ever seen. And she was, because it all felt right.
We both love comedy. We're like, let's get married on April Fool's Day, because that's just us. Like, that's just who we are. So we did. We got married on April Fool's Day. And I was like, if we ever get divorced, we should be like April Fools, however many years later, like, like just as a joke. But yeah, so our relationship has kind of always been like that. Like, we don't try to take anything too seriously, although we are very similar. We're both Virgos, we're both alphas, which can be a problem when you both are like so like just headstrong and think everything should go your way. So that presents its problems. But other than that, everything is very like, let's not take life too seriously. So that's kind of how we've always been.
I think we should probably start with Aricia.
I mean, Aricia, she's been through some stuff.
I like Aricia because she brings up a really interesting topic of how you want to be seen in life and in dating. She sees herself as a funny, motivated, driven, successful woman. And that's what she wants people to gravitate towards. Everything else is just kind of secondary.
Well, and you have to navigate around the sarcasm and be able to meet her at that and not be shy, scared away by that. I thought that was interesting that she had that self-awareness that I may drive people away who can't deal with my sarcasm and wit. If you're not picking up on that vibe, you're going to think I'm a total asshole.
Yeah, I've run into issues with this too, where the only guys that I really hit it off with are guys that understand or can dish back the sarcasm like I can.
Well, I also think sarcasm is part of flirtation, right? Are you going to pick up on what I'm putting down? And are you going to stay with me? And I think that is a good way for couples, people who are starting to date one another, I should say, to at least build that rapport and start to, build those fun little things that they have between one another.
If you can't get my sense of humor, this is just not going to fucking work out.
Yeah, but when you're first meeting someone, I think you have to go with it a little bit. There's a part of improv that you need to bring to a date to just whatever is thrown out, how do I keep the conversation going and build on that? And if sarcasm's out there, how can you not be stopped by that and actually build on it and dish it back? I mean, in some ways it's kind of a test. It's a litmus test early to say, can you keep up with me? This is something I want to throw out there.
So true.
Those are early stage things to establish if I'm interested in being with you.
Yep. And then when you're thrown into the deep end and you can't hang,
that's not good luck.
Not a good luck. I'm so fortunate that Philadelphia is a relatively small city. I mean, it's a big city.
Sure. But
you can get from one side of the city to the other side of the city in 12, 15 minutes, depending on traffic.
Right. It's not a 30-minute commitment. If you're getting off work and you live 45 minutes away and have to deal with 45 minutes of traffic, that sucks. It's one thing to do a long-distance relationship, but doing a long-distance relationship in the same city, that sucks.
Zone of proximity, man.
But Aricia doesn't need that shit. I also see her point of view. It's love is love, but love is not always convenient. You find a way to make it work.
What do you think about that racist asshole?
White mom, black dad, what the fuck?
I can't relate to this at all because I'm not a person of color. I'm not black, so I don't understand that complexity from an identity perspective. But I am a woman, and I have, had men make comments about my body, and you just kind of let it go because you're just oh wow, he's interested. This is very immature, less evolved, less boundaries version of myself, when it becomes more about self-worth and value and understanding what's appropriate and not appropriate.
I mean, it's different, but what we're talking about is just objectively making a physical comment and not anything about who Aricia or you are as a person.
Correct.
It's just oh, I'm objectifying you. You're this. I'm into this. Let's talk.
She's showing up to a scene, going into action, saving somebody's life, rising to the occasion. Comment on that.
Yeah.
Comment on how she performed, what she brought to the table,
But I want to take the conversation further because it seems like she's still struggling with her boundaries and identity around that. It seems like she has a little bit of shame around her at one point in her life being okay with being treated that way. But it seems like Aricia is growing and trying to understand why 20-something Aricia felt one way about that, but now she's looking at that whole situation in a completely new light.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what growth looks like.
That guy just seems so out of bounds.
But that's what's so interesting is he wasn't out of bounds for her then.
I asked her, what was your favorite date?
With this guy or ever?
Her favorite date that she's ever had was with that guy. Going to an airport, sitting at the airport bar, and making up fun stories about people. But her now, looking back on it, it was like, that was an incredibly racist thing that I experienced. Talk about growth. She was saying how when she was younger, she had a laundry list of things that she wanted from a guy. And I've totally gone through this process too. It's like, you know, color hair, eyes, all of these things that you think that you want. But then you realize, I just want someone that has good values and sees me as the person that I am. It's that simple.
Yeah, people joke, but as you get older, that list starts to dwindle away, right? But I actually don't think this is an age thing. I think this is a wisdom thing.
Yeah.
And wisdom does come with age. It's just having more life experience and saying, you know what, all those things that in my 20s I thought I valued, they really don't mean anything.
Right. Well, I asked Brooke,
Her partner in crime.
if she had any advice for her best friend. And her one piece of advice was,
Aricia has a tendency to write people off very quickly. And so, like, I guess my advice to her would just be to be a little open-minded. I don't know. I don't want her to rush into it just so we have a fourth for game night. I want her to take her time and find the right one. But I think he's out there, and I think he'll be a comedian for sure.
Well, it's funny to hear Brooke say that, because to transition to Brooke's story, it seems like she used to be pretty hard on people.
oh, she didn't give a flying fuck about Ross.
Oh, no, she was going to let that guy pine for like 2.5 years. I mean, she was literally the Rachel to Ross.
Their life valeting reminds me a lot of the show Party Down.
I knew you were going to say that, and I know you love that show.
Did you get those vibes?
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
It sounds like a fun scene. It's this weird, different world that I don't have a preview into. So, like, Dre, maybe we should write that screenplay.
The valet.
The valet.
No, I thought it was interesting, and whether or not they knew it, there was like this magnet connection that kept bringing them back together. And I thought that was super mature of Ross to be like, I'm in a relationship and I gotta separate myself from you because I have feelings for you. Like, that's very mature.
Yeah, like, Brooke, you're both single now. You meet this guy who actually, like, respects a relationship, and you think this one's gonna be the 3-month and done? Like, no, that's the guy you run to.
But they took each other's time and they came together when they were both ready.
Yes.
And they didn't rush it.
Can we back it up? 'Cause I got to call you out for one thing you said in the story. You do the trip from LA to Vegas for 2 reasons. Gambling or love, and he wasn't gambling. Yo, homeboy Ross was gambling. You don't go on New Year's to this girl you're hanging out with to her parents' house and not take a gamble. That's high stakes poker right there.
Yeah, it was a risk. Fair. And it paid off.
Dude, it paid off. The dog who hates men was like licking his face down.
He hit the jackpot. And I think that it's a really beautiful testament to things happen when they're ready and supposed to happen.
Agree.
And they seem to have an incredible marriage. I asked Aricia what she thought of their marriage. She said Ross is such a kind and thoughtful husband. And when they premiered their show, Even the Rich, he brought them both flowers as like a thank, like as a congratulations.
Aww.
I love how much Aricia loves Ross for her best friend, Brooke.
That's really sweet.
If you guys want to hear more from these two, go check out Even the Rich. And I gotta tell you, the one Princess Di episode, you hear how awful Prince Charles is to Diana. That's got some Some juicy dating stuff there.
If only Charles met Ross.
And be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. And if you guys want to write in, we love your stories. Please write to us at datingdiariespod@gmail.com.
Keep us on our toes, guys.
Until next week, stay safe out there, guys. This podcast is hosted and executive produced by me, Andrea Gunning. Executive produced by Nancy Glass, Ben Fetterman, and Carrie Hartman. Produced by Julie Clark. Associate producers include Megan Paisley and Kristen Malcurie. Edited by Mac Daggett and Matt Delvecchio. Special thanks to Natalie Thomas. Music by Mybe Music. Some names have been changed to protect privacy.